Hello Sean, we've got the transmission apart out of your 2008 Dodge R3500. This is what it looks like when it's all apart. And I will go over some things we found on the inside with you so you understand what it is that we're saying and what the failure points are. So we'll start with the clutches. This is our 2C clutch. You can see the steel plate is a uniform color and the friction plate is a dark lining, but it is a uniform color, so this clutch has not been slipping. These reddish brown ones are the underdrive clutch. This is pretty much the color there should be. They're a one-way or a one-sided clutch disc, so you can see you got steel on this side, friction on that side, and they're all sandwiched together. Very slight discoloration, but not bad, so we're going to consider that clutch to not really have slipped. This is our reverse clutch. It's a dark green lining, and you can see the steel plate is in good shape too, so that clutch was not slipping. When we get to the overdrive clutch, these clutches should look really the same as these, and you can see the difference in the color. We'll get some different light on there so you can see the difference in the color there. So this plate here is from the overdrive clutch and it has been slipping, that's why it's turned black. So overdrive clutch was definitely slipping. This one's our low reverse clutch, and you can see they are one-sided frictions as well, but not really any slippage there. This is our 4C clutch for fourth, and it's the dark lining, same thing, it really hasn't been slipping either. All the shafts, there's not much to see on the shaft. We still have to check the fit of the bushings, but the shafts themselves are fine, the drums look fine. There are molded pistons inside here that quite often the rubber molding can delaminate, and it can also wear away, so the molded piston should be changed during a recondition. On a repair, as long as everything looked good, we would reuse the molded pistons. And on a recondition, all of these frictions, even though these ones look good, on a recondition we're going to change all of them out with new ones, and Borg Warner is our clutch that we would use as well. This is the solenoid pack. So in here, you can see right there is a solenoid, and there's going to be a number of different solenoids in here, line pressure solenoids, and our different shift solenoids. So on a recondition, we're going to put a new solenoid pack on. There's some pressure switches inside there. The low reverse solenoid in particular is a little bit prone to failing, but on a repair like this one, there's nothing wrong with the solenoid pack at this time. On a repair, we're going to reuse it, but on a recondition, we would put a new solenoid pack in. Again, all of the clutches, all the frictions would be replaced. On a recondition, anytime that there's a programmer, typically we're going to use a Red Eagle clutch in the overdrive pack here especially, and that's to allow more surface area, so we'll get a couple extra frictions in there for better holding capacity. All our bearings, we still have to check them properly, but right now they all look okay, as the planets also look fine too. So this one is going to be, you can see the gear there, you can see the pinions, there's going to be a sun gear, so that's a sun gear that's going to go inside there. This is just another sun gear, and here's the third sun gear there. But all these planets themselves, they look okay. Whether it's a recondition or a repair, these planets look fine, so they'd be reused in all instances. On the pump, the pump gears themselves, you're going to have gear that goes inside here like that, so that's going to sit down in here. The torque converter is going to turn that gear, and then you're going to have a gear on each side of that gear like that, and so as the converter turns, you can see it's going to turn that gear, plus there's another gear there. This stuff looks fine. We'll have to polish it a little bit. There's a little bit of scoring here. That does look fine. I'll show you the other part of the pump in a minute. On our solenoid, or this is our valve body, the solenoid switch valve bore is right here, and they have plugs inside of it that, it's very common for them to wear the bore. So that's going to be a plug right there. There's 3 of those. The plugs themselves are going to touch each other, and they're going to move valves. If this plug moves away from another plug, basically you want the plug to be able to seal the passage between here and here so that the oil doesn't leak down through the plug and come back out. And in this case, the bore that's down in there, so that'll be the bore there, it is worn where the plugs go. So what happens is you have oil basically leaking through one side to the other, where this plug should have actually been a tighter fit, and the tighter fit stops the oil from going from one side to the other. That's one of the reasons for this set of burnt clutches here, because what ends up happening is the overdrive clutch drags on when it's not actually supposed to be on, because the oil is partially putting it on. Now when we get to the other part of the pump, I'll go over to the station. And so this is where we're vacuum checking this the pump. So what we're looking for, this TCC limit valve here, we've got a considerable amount of wear where this valve is in there. So the valve is supposed to stroke back and forth, but basically we don't want oil pressure leaking from one side to the other. This valve is so worn out that when we put our tester on, we're going to seal a passage like that, and we're basically going to try to pull vacuum through there. If the valve is a tight fit, it's going to act like a seal, and we'll be able to develop a lot of vacuum. When the valve is really loose, we don't really get any seal, and we end up pulling very little vacuum. And on this one, we couldn't even pull 1 inch of vacuum, which obviously tells us that the valve itself is terribly worn. So that's basically what we found on the inside of the transmission. So now you really have an idea what we're talking about. Thanks.